Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous, hosted by Bruce Hutchin. I'm so happy you joined us today, and you're going to find out a lot about whitetail hunting on the show.
This is Whitetail Rendezvous, episode number 352.
On this episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, we're going to be talking to Kevin Orthman, who is the executive director of POMA. What's POMA? Professional Outdoor Media Association. So you're in the outdoor industry, you need to be a member of POMA. If you're a writer, create film, have a blog, have a podcast, you should be a member of POMA, because everybody in the industry that's serious about their career is a member of POMA. Kevin's also going to share some great stories about hunting and the people and the characters he's met along the way. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
It's never too early to think about food plots. Whitetail Rendezvous has an ebook for you. Just simply text 33444 food plot to get your copy.
Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. Now we're going to kind of twist it up or turn it over, because today we're going to meet with Kevin Orthman, the executive director of POMA. What is POMA? Professional Outdoor Media Association. Why that important to you? Because you're part, if you listen to the show, you're part of the media. And I want Kevin to come on, and he's going to tell us about POMA, but he also is going to tell us about some iconic people that have been members over the year that POMA helped out dramatically. Including, I've been a POMA since I started this podcast. So, Kevin, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate being here. We've talked about it for a long time, and I'm glad you finally we had some schedules that coincided.
Well, great. So, Kevin, just tell us about the origin of POMA and why it's important to my listeners.
You know why it's important to your listeners. The origin is pretty straightforward, actually. So it's a professional organization for the people who talk about the outdoors and the stuff we love, the traditional outdoors, mostly hunting and fishing. And quite frankly, it came from about 10 years ago. It started, and it's a group of people who have 500 members and about 350 corporate partners. And it's a group of people who really love the outdoors and really want to continue to tell the story.
So what kind of stories are we telling? Is this media for TV, for podcasting, such as I am, for radio, for writing? Help me understand so my listeners can understand, if they're doing X, then they really should check out POMA and become a member.
Yeah, if you're doing anything in the outdoor media, so that to us, that means anything. You're a videographer, you're a podcaster like yourself, you're a writer. We even have artists and photographers, historians, and then, and anything with television or radio. Anybody who's telling the outdoor story really needs to be part of POMA. And this is why. It's a way to really help the outdoor industry validate who we are with our partners that do that. So our corporate partners, and I have everybody from General Motors down to JB's Fish Sauce, and everybody in between. And basically what they do is they help connect people so they can tell that authentic story.
What does that mean, or an authentic story? Help me unpack that so my listeners can grab the depth and how broad POMA really applies to.
The authentic story is what you do, Bruce, is you tell a story, this is what we do, this is the lifestyle we live. I grew up in Indiana on a small farm, but I grew up on the shores of Lake Michigan. So, my story really started with the Great Lakes and salmon fishing there and deer hunting there. And then I had the ability to travel all over. So I've done some out west hunting, but it's an authentic story, the stuff that we live. And there's hundreds, and you know as well as I do, there's thousands and thousands of people who do this for a living. It's a way. They hunt and fish as a part of their life.
No, I think of a story. I've hunted with Judd Cooney over there in Iowa Trophy Adventures, and he was telling me about POMA and the long run he had. The most interesting thing is that he said, you got to get a hold of Brenda Valentine. He had known Brenda for a long time, and I at that time, a couple of years ago, I didn't really know who Brenda Valentine is. I do now. But anyway, and so I sent her an email. Hey, Judd Cooney recommended we get in touch, and so forth and so on. And we finally did talk live time. And I said, Brenda, I understand, your resume is broad and deep, and you've been involved in a lot of organizations, done fantastic things. You are the first woman of hunting, so forth and so on. And I said, why did you pick up the phone? She said, first thing I looked at, are you serious about your career at this podcast? I said, yeah. She said, yeah, I knew that right away because you were a member of POMA immediately when you started your podcast. And I listeners, I would share this. So you pay your money, and you get credibility. You're vetted, and people in the industry recognize the weight and scope of POMA, and that's what facilitated this conversation with Kevin, because I think so many of us miss an opportunity to up our game, if you will. Does that make sense, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely. We try really hard to keep our members informed of what's happening in the marketplace. For media side, and then what's happening. For the marketing side too, with companies, what they're looking for, how they're feeling, what the next, sort of the next feel is. I mean, you know as well as podcasts are still sort of cool and new, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, but it's interesting when you talk to folks from the corporations, like, hey, these are easy to do, they're fun to do, and it's amazing how we can connect people that way. And then, on the other thing right now, sort of the new and hot thing, right? Just, always is social media, but really Instagram is really hot right now. It's sort of fun to watch how that's sort of growing. So, and how you tell your story in just one picture. So, it's a cool sort of, it's ever evolving. We have ebooks, we have, the list keeps continuing, continuing, but there's still a place for that. I'm an old fashioned kind of guy, and I still like the paper books. I still love to read them. And the newspaper articles, I still get to the house. So.
Yeah, and that's one thing my buddy has a Kindle and says, "Oh yeah, just get a Kindle and download it and everything." I don't like reading off a Kindle. I like to have a book in my hand, and
I do too. I really like the smell and the feel.
Yeah, it's like sitting down with a friend and you're reading a story together. To me, and everybody else in our fast-paced world, doesn't get it that way, but I sure as heck do. So let's talk about, okay, so a person says, hey, I need to check out POMA. What's that process?
It's actually pretty straightforward. If you go to www.professionaloutdoormediaassociation.org, it's straightforward. It talks about our member list, and if you're your media, there's a voting media member. If you're an associate membership is really for someone who is doing what we do already, but now just trying to get themselves started, or try to get themselves established in the industry. And then we have our corporate partner list as well. So if you're, like we just picked up a nice company called Hunting Shacks that make like portable, high-end hunting blinds. And in my opinion, I probably live in one. But yeah, so that's a corporate partner. So it's straightforward, pretty straight and easy to do. So
now, besides name recognition, what are the benefits, for people starting out in the industry that we haven't already touched on?
What they really get their benefit is meeting, we have a nice size convention once a year. This year it's in Shreveport in June 13th through the 16th. It is a great opportunity to network. And outdoor industry, like no other, is really about networking and shaking hands and meeting people. Bruce, you mentioned before the show that you went to the ATA. It's amazing how many people put a face to the name and what that really carries with you. You already have a great show, but it takes to the next level. And we do the same thing. It's really where the relationships can be built, and it also helps us. Helps you figure out what the needs are and how you can tell your story differently.
And props out to Shirley Moore. I mean, any question I ever had over the last couple of years, she's been right on, and she even tried to, help me get Jeff Foxworthy on the show, because I think he'd just be an absolute hoot. I mean, because he is a real country boy. I mean, he's real as he's just the real guy, and I just think that would be fun. So Shelley tried, put up a flyer for me on that. Hasn't happened yet, but the year's still young. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Shelley keeps me in line all the time. I really appreciate all the hard work she does. So Shelley is our membership director, and she's the lady that works behind the scenes and a lot of the stuff. And I really appreciate everything she does. And the people who know her and appreciate her. And if you haven't met her yet, she's somebody you should meet. So
now let's talk about Kevin the Hunter. Now tell us some of the escapades about where you've been, what you've done, and who you've hunted with.
I've been all over, but I grew up, like I said, in Indiana, and so it was mostly my father and my uncles. But we hunted mostly birds and deer. Indiana is. I joke around that people drive to Illinois and they go to Michigan and Wisconsin, but they always forget about Indiana. I will put our deer head to head with any of those people, So mostly deer there. And then I really got into rough grouse hunting in Michigan. My wife and I moved up to Detroit for a number of years. So if you haven't been rough grouse hunting, I bet a dear friend of mine said it the best. He said, it's a special kind of idiot, and you're one of them. So I always so that's mostly bird hunting. I do run dogs. I used to have German short-hair pointers, and now I have Rock Frances. And I run them for birds, for pheasants, for chuckers, and I used to guide. And then, like I said before, salmon fishing has always been a big part of my life. So I've been all over. My brother used to live. He just moved to Florida, but he lived on the West Coast. So we've done fishing there. I've fished in Montana. I've grouse hunted in Washington and chucker hunted there too, and just went out west to Utah this year and shot my first pronghorn. So yeah.
Well, that's kind of fun. Now, do you ever get invited with some of the known writers or anything? Do you ever go out with a Zumbo of the world?
Yeah, this year, I went with the guys from Honey Break and Drew Keith. If you know where Honey Break is, it's sort of like it was a duck hunter's playground. It's 22,000 acres of and that's all they do for it. So I got to hunt with those guys. This was Scobie and I. We're in Utah. We were at the same camp together this year. Sort of cool, and we have some other hunts planned. And Brandon Butler and I from the Conservation Federation of Missouri have hunted together and fished together. He's an incredible writer. So yeah, it's fun. It's funny, Bruce. You people ask me all the time, do you get to hunt with these people? And it's really like hunting with your friends. So I don't really. I admire what they do, but they're just great people to be with. So and their knowledge is amazing.
How did the hunting tradition in your family get started?
I really would say I don't know. I don't know when the starting was. It was probably a necessity, to be honest with you. My dad grew up on a farm, a working farm in Union Mills, Indiana, and a little town. And it was the kind of town that had. I mean, his farm had working Belgians and plow horses. So he tells stories of hunting quail on the farm for Thanksgiving. His mother was an incredible cook, and so as back then deer weren't as prevalent. I was just telling a story to my son. I remember even in my early lifetime, I remember us going to church and we would stop if we saw geese or deer on the side of the road because they're just not, they weren't there. But no, I guess it started back then. He was a trapper, he was a fisherman, and that's how he got his. He worked through high school, but he also trapped on his property, and mostly for mink and muskrat. And so yeah, it's just a part of our lives. Always has been.
Thanks for sharing that, because some people, they never make the connection. You say, well, he's a director of this and he's running this, and we're all hunters at heart, and we all like the adventure. And talking about grouse hunting, just maybe you can help me. Why do grouse dive into the snow when it gets really deep and fluffy? What's that all about?
I assume it's always to keep warm or just to annoy me and my dog. That's the only two sensible things I can come up with. But
well said. Well said.
So I don't know if you're much of a grouse hunter, if you've hunted grouse before. But unlike pheasant hunting, and I enjoy both, but it's not open. It's you're in the thick aspens, and I've taken a lot of people. They've said, "Hey, I really want to go." I said, "Sure." Either you're going to love it, you're going to hate it. But the lodge is nice. That's how usually the letters are usually written. So yeah, they are a bird to contend with. It's still part. Woodcock and grouse is still a huge warm place in my heart. So.
Well, I'll just share this little tidbit. When I was 10, 12 years old, living in Foster Center, Rhode Island, I had a single shot, pull the hammer back, HR Topper. I think that's what it was called. Anyway,
well, that's a good gun.
Well, and so we had a little can't call it a farm. My family owned 80 acres, and and so my father really didn't hunt, but I got checked out, and my neighbor took me hunting. But anyway, I was out one Sunday morning, and I saw one of these. I saw wings on the snow, and I'm going, "What the heck is there?" I didn't see any feathers, so I didn't think a hawk had gotten one. So I'm just kind of looking at it, and I didn't know what I was looking at. And all of a sudden, the snow erupts, and the feathers go, and I lifted a gun, and bang! I got my first rough grouse at 10 or 12 years old. And what a sensation for a little kid! What an experience for a young kid to see that. And that's why I brought it up about why they dive in the snow. And it's just amazing. Just simply amazing.
I've never seen a bird that flies. It's so they'll hold and they'll do some crazy things. I can tell a story about. I had I just lost one of my dogs, but his name was Bo. He's an incredible dog, probably one of the you get a couple of dogs in your life, and he was one of them. And there's the story, he locked up on point, and that grouse walked right underneath him and looked at him through the whole time. You just don't get usually a bird to do that. They just have sort of a special, some say they're the last really wild bird in the U.S. and that's native to the U.S. And so they have that sort of American spirit. They're a little cantankerous and they're very proud of what they do.
Now, for the people that have hunted grouse, they also hunt woodcock. Why do they kind of go hand in hand?
It's about the migration. It's about so the woodcock migration is, they sort of coincide. Michigan and Wisconsin have, they'll have a dual thing. So they'll come out of Canada, and some of them end up down south here. And I live in Nashville now, but they'll go all the way down to New Orleans. And if you haven't hunted woodcock, they're a different bird too. They're a weird sort of shore bird that lives in the woods. They're worm eaters and beautiful. One of the prettiest birds, I think, and I think that's why they go hand in hand. And maybe it's just to make us less frustrated. Maybe not seeing as many grouse as we like to see.
You take me back to my New England roots, and we didn't have a lot of deer. We had plenty of rabbits and squirrels, and that's where my hunting tradition began. And kind of lost it when I went to Long Island, New York, to high school. But then, as soon as I hit Wisconsin, man, it was homecoming. I think I spent more time in the marsh than I did in class.
Yeah, there's a great book. If any of your listeners haven't shot or really know what woodcock and grouse are like, and if you can find the book, I wish I have one of his first editions. It's called Fall of Woodcock, and it's quite. It's by Tom Hugler out of Michigan, and he is quite honestly, it's one of my favorite books. It's a little fireside reading, but if that doesn't make you salivate to be out in the North Woods to hunt that game, then I don't know what else can get you fired up.
And this is kind of neat, Kevin, reminiscing about things I haven't thought about. I've been blessed to go up into the Saskatchewan and up in that country and have thousands and thousands of geese, flying in and making ruckus and jumping ducks and pheasants. And I've even shot a some chuckers. But when you go back to your roots, and this is what I'm sharing with my listeners, you go back to your roots and start writing about that. And when you write, get a hold of POMA and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and how do I get started? Who can I get in touch with? And they're that type of company. I asked Kevin a couple of questions in the warm up. He said, yeah, I've got a couple of guys that might be interested in working with you because Whitetail Roundabout, as you know, is my show, and whatever happens here, it's all on me. I'm 100% accountable. But as we grow and begin to monetize and people find value in us, relationships are critical, and you want to have relationships with the leaders in your business. And I count Kevin Orthman and POMA and Shelley Moore as those partners as I grow in the industry. And I want to thank you for that, Kevin.
Oh no, I'm just really I'm really happy to be here, Bruce. I'm one of your listeners. I listen to it. It's on my little list, my iPad or my podcast list, and I listen to it when I can. And it's always fun to hear who you have on, what they're talking about. It's really about the story, and I think you're right. If you're doing this already, I started a journal a long time ago. Just to keep records of who I hunted with and when I hunted with them, and I think that's the key. Is the is to remember it's stories. I've had some really bad hunts, but some of the best stories I've ever had in my life with good friends. It's not about the game; it's about the chase for me. So, yeah, I really appreciate what you're doing here.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up because it is the memories. At my age, I think back, and I posted my own show. I was interviewed by one of my good friends, Mike Grandstad from Whitetail Stalker. He interviewed me. He said, "I want to interview you." I said, "Okay, fine." And unfortunately, with me, I can bounce here and bounce there, but I try to put a cohesive show together and kind of tie it all in. But when you think of the memories, and I can just shut my eyes, I'm 10 years old, shut my eyes, and that rough grouse bust, and I made the shot. And you think about that, or the first brook trout you catch, or the first, whatever, or you sit in some place with a good friend, and the sun comes up and the sun goes down, and it's just magic. And that's where Kevin and I are talking about stories. And when you can tell those stories, POMA is an avenue to get you around other people that are really good storytellers. Who's some of the fun storytellers that you've had in the organization that just you can't stop listening to them?
Yeah, Jim Zumbo always, his stories always captivate me. Tony Byam, he's a photographer out west. He's incredible. He's been all over the world. Tom Opry, you've probably seen some of his work on the television side, but him and his wife Liv. Liv's been doing this for a long time. So is Tom. So it's interesting just to hear the people they interact with. There's a gentleman, a new guy named David Page out of Idaho. He's also a photographer. He's incredible. But he lived as a African guide for a while. So my son, he was over at the house. He was just happened to be at the house for a couple of weeks ago, and my son listened to his stories and looked at him. His son's 11. He said, "Well, it's nice to meet you. You're like the most interesting man in the world I've ever met. So I'm glad to be here." So it's sort of cool, and the list goes on and on. The key is to tell the stories and pass it along, and then the good ones pass the other people's stories along. I think you hit it right on the head, Bruce. Is the fact that I can close my eyes. I can remember hunting with my grandfather and my dad. And I remember some of my good friends and some of the guys who passed, and those are those are incredible. And I'll give you the most recent story. About 2 years ago, I went on a little media hunt down in Mississippi. It was a great hunt with some great people, but there was some silliness happening in the duck blind, but I was hunting with a gentleman I didn't know. And SHOT Show came around. I haven't seen this gentleman for, almost 2 years. And we're walking down the hallway at SHOT Show, and he's like, "Hey, you're the guy hunting. Remember the worst day of duck hunting ever?" I said, "Yeah," and that's how we remembered, and that's how we reconnected. So, but we laughed about it, had a great time.
I think I'm just trying to how to phrase my words. We've all been up against it in situations we weren't there, but when we get downstream on them, fortunately, nothing really bad happened. We can look back and say, lessons learned, but you have a bond, just like you had this bond with the gentleman, worst duck hunting they've ever been on, but there you have something that you can share together that lasts forever, and that's what hunting's about. And let's talk about this a little bit. Hunting's about memories and guys and gals and youth and billion-dollar industry, but hunting's really about relationships. Your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest key. I mean, you know as well as I do, Bruce. I might know a guy forever in an office setting, but you let me take him duck hunting for once, and that's how you really get to know a person, and vice versa. I love some of my best memories with my nieces and nephews, and are fishing. It's I'm at the age where I have little. My son's the oldest. I have little nieces and nephews, and a long time ago, I realized that really my job is to untangle line, and I'm okay with that. It's fun, but it is still it is still amazing to me when you watch a kid get that SEG, and you're a family show, so you guys have to look at what the SEG is, but when they catch their first fish, or just bring in something, or even a little sunfish, it's just awesome. So it's really about friendship and camaraderie and doing something new and experience.
What do you think the challenges that the outdoor industry is facing now?
The challenges these are all my opinions. I mean, there's data that shows other things, but my challenge is to get outside and do something. And I think the biggest challenge is there's a great group of people like yourself and myself, and I would say majority of people at POMA. There are so many of my neighbors that they want to try this stuff, they don't know where to start. And you go to a big box outfitter, and there's nothing wrong with them, but you say I want to go fishing. Well, there's 9 rows of fishing hooks. If you don't know what you're doing, or you don't know where to start, it's sort of there's so in my humble opinion is our biggest challenge is to get new people in. Let's take your friend hunting. If you have a neighbor or a coworker says I've always wanted to try, okay, come on, let's do it. And that's my biggest thing. And then I always fear, it's sort of a hot topic right now, is the access to public land, and I grew up on public land. Indiana has some of the best public land, in my opinion, in all of the nation. I mean, they really tend it. They really do a great job. But yeah, so that's where do you go? And I just want to see those access points close up.
We've covered a lot of ground, and Kevin Orthman, thank you so much for sharing about POMA. And listeners, check it out. Whether you just wrote your first article and trying to get it submitted, there's a lot of tools you get by membership. And plus, I hope to get this report this year just to hang out with the people that I've read their work or seen their work or enjoyed their photographs. And you become part of the community, and that's one reason why you go to these events, is to become part of the community and make connections that help us all. So, Kevin, you got a minute or two to give some shout outs, and then we're going to wrap the show.
Absolutely. Like I said, POMA, professionaloutdoormedia.org is the website. Please stop by. We're at POMA, POMA_HQ on Instagram, Twitter, POMA HQ. But Shreveport, Louisiana this year, June 13th through the 16th for a national conference. That'd be one heck of a time. And the food is going to be incredible, and we have some great guests sort of getting lined up. And and Bruce, I really appreciate you having me here, man. I really do. Hopefully, you make it to Shreveport this year. We'll have a quiet space to do some podcast recording. So,
well, I look forward to it, and I went to ATA, and that was kind of our coming out party for me because I had my partner, Bob Rourke, is in the back room, so to speak, and he had never been exposed to the hunting community like like I have lived. And all of a sudden, we're walking down these halls, the aisles, and people go, "Oh, hi, Bruce. I was on a show," or "Man, I listened to your show." And that didn't happen once. And he goes, "Holy fright, this is all real." and and that makes it so much fun for me because there's a gazillion other things I could do, but this is what I want to do because this helps me pass on the hunting tradition. It helps me link up with guys like Kevin and other people in POMA and other people, just in the country that love what they do. They're good at it, but we're huge. We're a huge industry, but we're a very small community. And when we get around the campfire, everybody's there with a story, and that's pretty good.
Absolutely. And thank you, Bruce, for doing this and still telling the stories and keep on doing what you do. I look forward to listening and keep listening and see how the podcast grows.
On behalf of thousands of listeners across North America, it has been a pleasure to have Kevin Orthman from POMA on the show today, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, sir.
Hey, folks, on the next episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, we're heading out to Idaho Falls, to be exact. And we're going to connect with David Page. Who is David Page? Well, he's one of the men at the Confluence Group. What do? Well, they're a marketing company. But David Page is more than that. He's been throughout the West. He's run rivers. He's spent time in Africa. This guy has done it all. So sit back, relax, and listen to the next episode with David Page.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.